right. We are live right now. Kind of. You're going to be hearing this recorded, but this is the Bastard Executioner podcast. I'm Murder Brian from Street Fight Radio, which is where you're probably getting this off the stream. And I have Will Menaker, who was he made it all the way through Sons of Anarchy too. So we needed to do this. And of course, I brought Felix, Swarthy Villain, onto the radio because this show seems like it's made for you. It seems like maybe you have a lot in common with Kurt Sutter, I think.
I do. I mean, this show's been a journey for me. Ever since it was first announced, I would get about like 5 things a day. People telling me it was going to happen. People couldn't believe it was a real thing. People thought that it was a joke that I made. In the months following, I spent a lot of time predicting what the show would be like, and I gotta say, after seeing the pilot, the 2-hour-long pilot, I am not disappointed. It is exactly what I thought it would be.
Will, is that where you're kind of at too? Are you at? Is this what you thought it was going to be?
First of all, I'd just like to say good morrow to both of you, and in this medieval theme that we have going here. But yeah, no, I co-sign what Felix said. It's everything I would expect from a Kurt Sutter helmed show set in 14th century Wales.
And I'm the same way. Like I actually, the way I looked at this, the jokes that were made online, because I would get tagged in, and Will and I get tagged in on Sons of Anarchy stuff a lot too, because we did that street fight. And like when this show came out, I was like, this show is gonna be a fucking Game of Thrones, like it's Sons of Anarchy run through a Game of Thrones translator, and that's what I thought it was gonna be. I was like, I kind of know what this is gonna be, and within the first 5 minutes of it, I was like, yep, I know what this show is.
Well, yeah, I mean, right off the bat, within the first 5 seconds of the show, you see a naked woman and a crucifix, and it's like it took an hour and a half of Bad Lieutenant to get to that point, but we're just hitting the ground running.
I feel like right from the beginning we sort of set the tone, because it starts with Wilkin Brattle, the hero, who it's unclear whether he's the Bastard Executioner or not.
I knew, by the way, the second they showed that guy, I was like, look, it's the Bastard Executioner.
But then you see another one. There's another Executioner. So it's like, there's already a plot twist. There are a lot of plot twists in the pilot. But yeah. He has this horrific dream about the Battle of wherever, where he was non-specifically betrayed and left to die. And he's like covered in blood, and then he sees like a child tell him that he has a destiny. And it's supposed to be like this PTSD thing, but he wakes up and then his day is just fine. Oh, he's so haunted. But maybe we're right in underfunded PA if that's what PTSD is like.
But you forget there was he also encountered a really awesome CGI hellbeast on the battlefield that sort of crawled out of someone's wound to assault him.
Oh, yeah, the dragon that's supposed to be like...
Okay, now, but here's the problem. Brian, you said the show was sort of like Sons of Anarchy with a Game of Thrones filter, but I'm not sure that's quite the best comparison, because the show it can't really be compared to Game of Thrones, because Game of Thrones' budget is just so much higher than this. And, like, for instance, the dragons on Game of Thrones, like, looked quite good, but on this show, not so much. It looked like... the CGI on this show looked like a video game.
It looked like a fucking blacklight poster.
Yeah,
it looked like a student art film, but like at a very well endowed high school, really good charter school.
That fucking dragon looked. It looked very Kurt Sutter though. Which you have a profile of him. I don't.
Yeah, no, I wanted to. When we did the Sons of Anarchy show, sort of towards the beginning, what I did was sort of randomly selected the plot descriptions from like TV Guide of just several random episodes of Sons of Anarchy to just sort of hopefully frame our discussion and sort of maybe reveal some of the themes we'll be getting at. So to open the Bastard Executioner podcast, I wanted to read from a profile of Kurt Sutter, the genius behind Sons of Anarchy, and now the Bastard Executioner, that ran in the Hollywood Reporter last week. It was their cover article, and I believe the cover was Kurt Sutter with the words, "I've pissed a lot of people off" on it. That was the big pull quote. So this is, let's see, August 26th by Lacey Rose. Let's see here. For years, he famously hung on his wall a letter warning him of, quote, hostile work environment, which he received after telling a studio bean counter to crawl out of my ass and let me do my fucking job.
That's the type of guy Kurt Sutter is. Like, when I first started watching Sons of Anarchy, people would be like, "Oh, you have to read his blog. It's a really great insight on like what it's like to be a showrunner." But like all his blogs, all the posts were titled, "Sometimes it takes a real son of a bitch to be a motherfucker."
Okay, well, I'm glad you brought that up. This is the next one that I've highlighted. This is Kurt in his own words now. "The reason why I embrace it and why I joke about it is because it is who I am in terms of tone and creativity. Meaning it's not bullshit that I'm a dark motherfucker, and I say very disturbing things in a creative way. I can scare the fuck out of people sometimes, but even in my darkest moments, even when I'm punching holes in fucking walls, all of that shit happens because of my passion for what I'm doing."
Oh my God.
He's a passionate motherfucker.
I like that. I fucking. It does take a special kind of a person to be like, yeah, I'm fucking intense. I'm dark as hell, and like not feel like they're full of shit. You know.
I feel like even Aaron Sorkin has like a level of shame that Kurt Sutter just could never know.
You're exactly right. Like Kurt Sutter. Like I think there could come like when you watch maybe that Facebook movie. I remember actually liking that the first time I saw it, but I've never liked anything else that Aaron Sorkin has ever written. But I am like on a real fucking Kurt Sutter wavelength. Like I feel like I know his psychology. Like when you read me his quotes, I'm not at all surprised that he's like that. That like he's the type of guy that would be like, listen, man, I'm a sick motherfucker. I think of the sickest shit, and I put it on TV, but I do it in a very artful way. When, like, that is completely...
Okay, sorry. Further down in the article, they reference when he was a writer for The Shield, and they're setting up a scene that he wrote where one of the detectives, quote, makes a crude discovery in the home of a sex offender during season 1. I remember saying, this is Kurt Sutter speaking now, then Dutch opens the refrigerator, and it's full of mayonnaise jars of cum. The room goes dead silent, and I'm just like, what? Nobody else thought of that? No, he's the kind of guy, he has tons of tattoos of crosses, and he loves crucifixes and stuff, but is not particularly Christian or religious, and like would say, he's the kind of guy that would put in his dating profile on like an online web service, like, I've got a dark, twisted sense of humor. Strap in for the ride.
Yeah, Kurt Sutter, like, if he never became famous, he'd still very much be himself. Like, he'd be at the office, like, wearing fucking Joker makeup on Halloween and, like, making the jokes, like, making, like, very crude pedophilia jokes. It's the type of guy he is. Like, fame didn't change him. He was always this guy. That's why I respect him.
No, I would recommend everyone to look up this profile in the Hollywood Reporter because it's very endearing in a strange way. But I mean, he is the television bastard, right? He's the mad genius television bastard.
Absolutely.
It's great that he's taken. I mean, semi-seriously, the word on Bastard Executioner on my Facebook was not positive, was not highly positive, but I think
the word among critics wasn't highly positive either. But we'll see what we think.
But you know what's strange? Like Sons of Anarchy was on the cover. I know this isn't huge, but it was on the cover of Rolling Stone at one point. Like he made people liked Sons of Anarchy. They were into that. This show, I don't know if it's gonna get. I don't know. I don't know who the fucking audience is, man.
Well, I think like with Sons of Anarchy, you could appeal to people who like they would see Gemma like tell off Jax's drug addict wife and be like, yeah, that's me. That's what I do at work. That's the type of person I am. Or they'd see like Jax being a maverick and they'd be like, that's who I am. These DUIs find me. But with Bastard Executioner, there might be too much of a disconnect, and that's a shame.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's hard to judge because we've only seen the 2-hour pilot was basically the first 2 episodes of the show, and I guess we'll talk about the plot. But basically, the central conceit of the show doesn't reveal itself until about well into the second hour, right?
Yeah, I did. I was like, shit, is this whole season gonna be him? Like, am I gonna have to wait the whole season before he's the Bastard Executioner? Because I thought I was signing up, especially when the first, like you said, within the first 5 minutes, there's a naked woman's ass and a battle with heavy metal music playing behind it. You're like, yeah, for sure, definitely, this is okay. I can get into this. But he wasn't as much of a bastard for a while. He didn't even become even the revelation that he was a bastard wasn't that great, because the second he said he didn't have a dad, I go like this. Oh, he definitely has a dad. Like, we know that he has a dad.
Possibly of noble birth. He could have some royal bloodline of purpose, per se. But, yeah, there are, unlike Sons of Anarchy, which right off the bat had Katie Siegel and Ron Perlman were both, instantly charismatic and, like, completely magnetic performances that, captured your attention right away. This show has a couple. It's hard to judge because it hasn't really fully ramped up where it's going yet. But right off the bat, there are some potential pitfalls that this show has already come into that I think sort of bleed over from the later seasons of Sons of Anarchy. Sort of the Kurt Sutter problem I see embodied as, if you're going to have a show that is so relentlessly grim and violent, and this show right off the bat is already more grim and violent than Sons of Anarchy, right? So if you're going to have a show that's that violent, it sort of has to be good. It's you're having a high bar for yourself. Like, for instance, if you're going to have a fetus cut out of a pregnant woman and, like, splayed on the ground next to her.
Yeah, it took Sons of Anarchy like 9 episodes to cut somebody's balls off. They, like, really would let those things go forever.
But, like, you know what I mean? Like, in the later seasons of Sons of Anarchy, where it was just basically after Tig gets his daughter burned alive in front of him, it's sort of like, how am I supposed to feel about this? Because it's like, on one hand, it's really kind of campy and ridiculous, but on the other hand, relentlessly grim and awful. So it's sort of like a weird juxtaposition of tones that are going on. And again, right off the bat in this show, it's sort of the same thing.
I think this show goes for it a little bit more, is a little more kind of, I think he's worried about some of the things Felix brought up earlier, is that, like, I think he's worried that people are going to be turned off by noblemen and people running around in a shire. So he was like, he worked extra hard to make sure that they knew, like, no, this is going to be some, we're going to have some fights. There's going to be heavy metal. It's going to be as gross as fucking possible. I mean, he really shot. You're right. You fucking cut a baby out of a woman in the first episode of a fucking TV show?
I'd like to point out that cutting the baby out, like, so I should give some background. When the bastard Wilkin Brattle, after the claim...
I'm sorry. All the names on the show are great.
Is that his real fucking name? Wilkin is his first name, right?
Yeah, star.
Oh my god. So Wilkin Brattle is our because I didn't know anybody's names. Everybody looks the same in this show too, except for Wilkin Brattle. I know him now.
Wilkin Brattle's a distinct looking man. He says, I'm not part of the rebellion against taxes, and then ends up killing Count Ventress, which, like, that's one of the most rebel things you can do, is to kill, like, a duke or a baron.
Yes.
He killed his liege lord in a illegal rebellion.
Because his pregnant wife, was stabbed with the fetus cut out, and we're led to believe that this is part of Baron Ventress's nefarious plan to raise taxes by killing people's wives. But
yes.
Later we find out that his wife was spared by Baron Ventress's one of Baron Ventress's forces, but it was the Dark Mute, played by Kurt Sutter,
who is the husband of the village witch who tells the Wilkin Brattle that he has a prophecy to fulfill. So as part of the prophecy, they cut out his they cut his kid out of his wife's stomach and killed her.
Katie Siegel is a witch on the show, just doing sort of the 14th century version of Planned Parenthood. She's making a killing selling baby parts for magic rituals. So, sorry.
She one of my favorite scenes with her was I was like, oh, it looks like she's going to be like a little less part of the story, than she was, because in Sons of Anarchy she was in every other fucking scene. She was one of the most important people in the show. But then like Wilkin Brattle is like, I'm going to ride into town and I don't have a plan except for vengeance, and everybody goes with him, and she like is standing out in the middle of a field and she stops him and is like, you should formulate a plan. And she's the cooler head that prevails, which then, come to find out that they're going to have like a relationship with each other.
Yeah. I wanted to touch on one thing that Felix brought up. Kurt Sutter, who of course is married to Katie Siegel in real life, right? He has cast himself again on this show as a character called, quote, the Dark Mute, who's sort of like this gimp that follows her around everywhere. But I want to touch on, like, this is another connection with Sons of Anarchy, because on that show, when we did the Sons of Anarchy podcast, one of the things we talked about was that Kurt Sutter's character on that show, Otto, he sort of like reserved all of the show's most heinous tortures and degradations for. And now it's like his character on this show, he's like picked up with Otto if Otto had lived through all of that and become like some weird gimp or something like that. So he's just taken Otto's character at his lowest and then just sort of like ran with that into this new universe.
Well, and Otto was also, in Sons of Anarchy, Otto was a pivotal character. Over and over again, he was kind of one of the guys that, like, he stabbed that woman and caused them a whole bunch of problems with Donnell Logue, if you remember that.
Yeah.
He also bit his own tongue off in that show so that he wouldn't have to turn on the club. So he was like he saved that club he probably saved that club at least 5 times and then almost destroyed it.
So, like, I remember Kurt Sutter saying in the first 2 seasons of Sons of Anarchy, I'm going to kill my character off, like, within the first 3 seasons. It's unbecoming for me to be in the show. And then Otto just, like, lasts until the rest of the show, like, getting tortured more and more nobly. How far do you guys see the Dark Mute going?
I see him running and running.
Oh yeah, I am already predicting the interviews that Kurt Sutter does about the Dark Mute, where they're like, "Hey Kurt, what's the difference between you and the Dark Mute?" And he's like, "Oh, the difference is Dark Mute has more of a filter than I do because he's a mute."
But he's not a mute. He talked at the end of this show.
Oh yeah, that's right.
I'm surprised he didn't say, "Hey, it's me, Kurt Sutter."
Miss me yet?
Miss me yet? He did. I swear, in Sons of Anarchy, he looked at the camera, and after he stabbed that woman he stabbed a pregnant woman with a crucifix. That was the whole point of the story, right?
Yeah.
Like a nurse who was actually nice to him.
I think we've just discovered another theme of violence against pregnant women on the charming oeuvre of Mr. Sutter.
And kids. Like, that's the reason they cut that guy's balls off is because he rapes and kills that guy's the city council.
Yeah, he doesn't kill her.
Oh, he rapes her. Okay, yeah. Well, okay. So there you go, right there.
All Kurt Sutter's like key plot points are like from like personality test dilemmas that you get on Facebook. So, like fucking fake news stories you get from websites called like addictingnews.biz, where it's like pregnant woman stabbed 1 billion times and her daughter pulled out of her womb because her husband was a Marine.
It's like the kind of stories that are at the bottom of the story you just read, like that kind of gutter that every seeming news article feeds into.
Yeah, he just scrolls through that and he's like, guy cuts off pedophile's balls. Yeah, that should be the turning point in my TV show.
He reads fucking local news comments
Yeah.
on stories about murders, because you go in there and it is like Sons of Anarchy, and he probably feeds into that. But yeah, can I I just got to bring this up. Okay, who is the mean Baron? Right, that the like not the one that gets killed, but the other one above him.
Miles Corbett, but he's not above him. He was the something below him. And
okay.
You saw him in the scene in the courtyard. Like he leads Baron Ventress on by being like, "Hey, you know how we're gonna get more money for taxes? We're gonna raise taxes." And then they call King Edward gay for some reason, which is never explained.
But then isn't he the same fucking dude that they go to talk to, and he's fucking the dude like in a hallway in the castle? It's like this fucking Kurt Sutter was like, oh yeah, they also he's the guy that every time you hear a story about the medieval times, they're like, yeah, they were also doing a lot of gay stuff back then.
Yeah, I predicted that. I want to point out I predicted there would be an evil bisexual lord. And I was not disappointed. And I don't know, like I feel like that's like there's a this is a common theme in Sons of Anarchy that like every villain had like a sexual thing that like they couldn't control themselves. They're like, oh yeah, like I gotta fuck a dude in the ass before I screw over the Sons, and it ends up being their downfall. Contrast that to the character in Sons of Anarchy who got his hands cut off so he couldn't jack off. Maybe all those crucifixes are real. Like maybe Kurt Sutter really is like an Opus Dei Christian.
It could very well be the case.
He's Ozzy. He's like Ozzy Osbourne has those crosses all over his house too, and I'll bet you he saw Ozzy's set up and he was like, yeah, that's pretty fucking dark. That guy.
I know exactly what happened with Kurt Sutter. He went to the Met or something and saw like these really intense Renaissance paintings of Christ being crucified with blood everywhere and like people crying. Was like, that's real. I don't believe in God, but I believe in this. This fucking art.
Yeah.
I don't believe in God, but I believe in this. He probably has that tattoo.
God is dead, but suffering and redemption are real.
Yeah. So another thing that I noticed is that like one of the notes I wrote down was just that like everybody dresses like an Ewok. Everybody in fucking what's his name, Wilkin Brattle.
Everyone in his barley farming village. I'm glad you brought this up because one of my notes, and this goes back to sort of what I said at the beginning, that if you're going to have a show that's this violent, it sort of has to be good. And one of the ways that this really plays out is just the general shoddiness of the costumes and look of everything on this show. Like the one sort of conceit to realism is that they made everyone's teeth really disgusting. But other than that, it just sort of looks like they're wearing, like, you know, some sort of, like, you know, these clothes you'd get at a thrift store.
Dry cleaned. Yeah. It's dry cleaned. Everything they're wearing is clean as hell. There's no dirt on any of it.
Yeah, like Brattle, when Wilkin Brattle shows up, like, in the town after he kills the Baron and the executioner whose identity he assumes, he's wearing, like, a cool leather tank top.
Yes, right. It's clean too. Fucking clean. Everything is clean.
Oh yeah, you could eat off that thing.
Yeah.
Like there is like a sort of Renaissance fair quality to all of this, and like when they're walking around the castle, like all the castle windows have like clear glass on them.
Yes.
You know? Like they didn't have that in the 14th century.
No.
Like, but they just like that was the only kind of like location that they could get that would look suitably medieval, you know. But
the fight scenes also look bad. Like the sword fighting when they surrounded the other Baron and they killed him, like that looked like fucking shit. Like I can't like I don't watch a lot of sword fighting. I don't watch any medieval stuff. I've never seen Game of Thrones. I assume all of it looks like this. It looked cheap. You know what it looked like something I could do. Like if you handed me a couple of swords, hand me and one of you guys a sword and we could put on roughly the same kind of sword fights that they put on.
I mean, you could say what you will about Game of Thrones. For all its flaws, it does not look cheap at all.
No, there's a lot of cheapness in this show. That's
And it's
true.
like Sons of Anarchy was cheap too, but like you could get away with it because it just took place in like warehouses in California where most of the sets on that show. But like if you're doing it in Shropshire in the 14th century, that's a little tougher it's a little tougher to half-ass that.
I want to talk about the scene after they kill the Baron's forces. Brattle's plan that the Katie Siegel gives to him, like the visionary witch. His plan is that he shows up at Baron Ventress's castle and is just like, we found them like this. That's more or less what he does. He gets a fucking wheelbarrow filled with like nobles who are just cut to like dead,
cut to ribbons and like propped up on their horse.
Yeah, he's just like, we found them like this. This is crazy, right?
It is a perfect Sons of Anarchy. It is a perfect Kurt Sutter plan, though. It is fucking bulletproof, And there was even the little cutoff of it when they were like, when he said it, that woman was his wife, and then she instantly fell in love with him.
Yeah. I want to know if you guys picked up on the fact the sort of cameo by my boy Jonathan Rhys from The Americans. Did you catch that?
Yeah,
he was the leader of the Welsh Rebels, wearing one of the worst fake beards and wigs I've ever seen on a major television show.
Worse than Lost. Have you ever seen Jack from Lost's wigs and beards?
As bad as that.
It just looks like they swept up a bunch of hair off of a barbershop floor and glued it to his face.
This one was a little fuller than that, but
yeah. That was a big bother with me. Like, is that everybody had like the facial hair is a problem for me for some reason, and I don't think people shaved like that back then. They all have like really on point beards.
Except for Brattle does look like he looks legitimately disheveled.
Yeah. Well, so did Jack. Yeah. Brattle is fucking Jax Teller. Like, he has the same goatee, he has the same facial hair, and like the same hair that Jax started out with.
And he's kind of emo like Jax too.
I feel like Jax Teller, like that's not his name. He's like the Dalai Lama, and like Jax Teller that we see in Sons of Anarchy is like the 30th Jax Teller, but Wolfie Brattle is like Jax Teller. It's a line that's been going back. There's only one hero.
That's genius. That's genius. That's the only way to read the Sutterverse. It all takes place in the same universe.
This could take place in Sons of Anarchy's universe, except for the fact that like the locations are so clearly fucking made up, or not even made up. Like, who would even know them?
Yeah, that's the title cards. Like, I want to talk about the title cards a bit.
We mentioned this before, but the location, the use and abuse of location titles on this show, that makes no sense whatsoever.
If you don't know, like, I don't know anything about Wales, okay? Like, I'll admit that I'm ignorant of Wales, and I'm sure that most of America's ignorant of Wales, and I would even venture further to say that most people watching FX are very ignorant of Wales.
The title card, which they use on almost every sort of commercial beat to like set up a location, it'll be something like Wessexshire, and then they'll give a second location to be like Old Helms Bridge. Like, that's supposed to mean anything to anyone watching the show.
Yeah, like anyone who excitedly tuned in for this was like, oh my god, Kurt Sutter is doing a Dark Ages show. Like they would see like Three Raven Forest and be like, oh my god, for Three Raven Forest he included it. Thank God. It was one of my favorite pieces of Welsh history.
I wonder if you can get a fucking map.
The poor mom and pop who have run the real Castle Ventress as a tourist attraction and bed and breakfast now are thrilled that they're going to get, a boom in TV-related business.
Where's the windows? Where's that hallway he was fucking that guy in the ass in?
Does my room come with its own shit wiper?
Oh my god, fucking goddamn it. That scene, that was another one where it was like, what are you doing? Like, this is the first I don't know what he's going to do to shock. I guess we got a little hint of what he's going to do to shock us later with when they were showing the old Traveling Punisher, which I don't. Did Traveling Punishers exist, guys? I'm pretty ignorant of history.
I buy it.
I'm just a Traveling Punisher, and there's a shitload of them. Apparently, there's 3 in that episode. Like, going from town to town.
The Traveling Punisher, every scene of the Traveling Punisher, by the way, that was like Kurt Sutter definitely had to go to a dark place to write those. He's just like arbitrarily cruel to his wife and kid. Like his wife is like, he's like, "You ate the chicken leg." And his wife goes,
Yeah.
"You can have more thigh." And
His son burns his hand tending the fire, and like he tells his wife, he's like, "Don't mother him. He has to feel the pain of his mistake."
There's a scene where the Traveling Punisher is like after a long day of yelling
Skinning
at his
people
wife
alive.
and skinning people and shit. He's just like sitting in front of the fire, like looking at his dagger, going, "I command the darkness. I am the Punisher." It's just like,
oh, the dialogue is so. There's another one I made a note of when it was like, you know, after the massacre or whatever, Brattle gets on his horse with a determined look, and then someone's like, "Where's he riding to?" And the guy just looks at him and says, "He's riding to meet the devil, as we all are."
How about whenever they get back to the village after everyone massacred, like they massacred everyone's family, and Brattle goes, "This is my fight." Like,
what a rude thing to say.
Pile with fucking everyone else's wives and like kids and everything. He's like, "No, this is my wife was killed more than yours."
Yeah, and not only was his wife killed, but he reluctantly did. They all talked him into it, and he's like, "This is my fight." And it's like, whoa, hey, no, this is their fight. You should be pawning the revenge off on those guys.
Yeah, so like the sort of hinge between episode 1 and 2 is, you know, this massacre of their village, right? And from the instant you're introduced to his wife, after, like, you know, he wakes up and he's like, "I'm a nice farmer now. War has passed me by." It's like from that instant he sees her and kisses her, and he's like, "Oh, you're as beautiful as the day I met you." It's like in your head you're just like, start the countdown clock to when she's viciously slaughtered. And it lasted about a half an hour. I mean, I was expecting sooner, but I mean, they strung it out a little bit more. What I like is, like, there's this gruesome massacre of everyone's family and their homes are just obliterated, but all the guys seem to deal with it pretty well. They move on pretty quickly.
Yeah, and actually, I would go as far as to say that the soldiers that killed him had a harder time with it than the guys whose families got killed. Because they kept showing, like, that's one of the things about this show, that, like, because they can't have bazooka wars, they have kills, almost like it's a horror movie. Like, so it was a series of almost slasher type scenes, watching innocent women and children and old people get murdered for like the last 10 minutes of like you said, the first episode. The last 10 minutes is just that. But I wrote down a line of dialogue when the Mean Baron, I call him the Mean Baron. At the end, when he's telling the bastard executioner, who I didn't know was Wilkin Brattle, at the end he tells him, when he's telling him he's going to be the Secret Service, he's like, you know, you're going to be my traveling Punisher now, you know. And what he tells him when Brattle's like, "I don't punish," he tells him, "I need a man with the heart of a dragon." And I was like, nobody said. Do you think people said that back in the medieval times?
But also, like, Corbett's like Milas Corbett, the guy who says this to Brattle, is portrayed as like this very he's Kevin Spacey from House of Cards, but a medieval lord.
Yeah.
And oh yeah, I guess he was bisexual too. We're seeing a recurring theme in TV here. But anyway, he's supposed to be this like brutal pragmatist, but he just sees Brattle and he's like, this guy seems intense. I should hire him, even though I have no idea who he is. I like your intensity, kid. You should know my most privileged information. You should know all my enemies who I want to kill.
I do like that. You have intensity. That was his one pick. But I think that's what, I mean, That's the main character trait that gets you by in a Kurt Sutter television show is intensity.
Oh, it's a very specific type of meritocracy.
Yeah. The latter's a little bit different, but like, yeah, that was, and the thing about it is, the guy was so afraid to execute. Like when it was time for him to do the execution, he really had a tough time with it, and you know that Baron was like, I think I fucked up picking this guy. I don't think he has the kind of intensity I want. But
I believe Kurt Sutter may have a tattoo of a dragon over his heart, if not a dragon heart itself.
yeah, no, I couldn't believe. You're right about the dialogue. Like it almost sounds like a Renaissance fair, or like you're on a ride at Disney World where you sit in a little streetcar. And you get to see
probably 90% of the
times.
characters, the dialogue could be delivered by an animatronic character with little to no effect on the overall bearing of the show.
So yeah, it's very like it is what. Listen, I'm ignorant of this. It's what I would write if somebody said you got to write a medieval TV show. I'd be like, yeah, I mean that's the language that like it's that bad that I can tell that it's bad.
That's what's sort of strangely endearing about it. And another thing I wanted to bring up was how right off the bat, and then for a good like hour into the show, how much burn the character who like his only attribute is that he fucks sheep. Like how long they ran with that, and like they just kept coming back to that well, like it was no thing, and like he's just the sheep fucker, and he's introduced with sort of like a monologue to himself, sort of like a Shakespearean comic relief, you know, like the Gravediggers in Hamlet or something like that, where you know, like he'll begin like the fourth act or something with some brief comic interlude, and like they bring this fool on, like, you know, enter sheep fucker, stage right, and he's like taking his prized ewe through the field and like, you know, whispering sweet nothings to her and being like, oh, he was joking that he only has eyes for her, and like it was late at night and he felt up some other sheep, but like he was really thinking of her. But done in this kind of pseudo Elizabethan kind of dialogue.
Well, that's like a Kurt Sutter thing. That's another Kurt Sutter theme. Is that like for like 8 episodes in a row, like people's daughters are getting burned alive, like school shooting, everything bad, and Kurt Sutter's like, all right, guys, I know it's been intense. You're not as dark as me. But don't worry, there's some relief. And there'll be like an entire episode where the Sons of Anarchy, like, they have to like stop a guy from jacking off all the time, and they all like make fun of him. But like Kurt Sutter's idea of comic relief, it's always like some psychosexual thing. But because he was cramming so much into this first episode, he's like, all right, I have to embed it. I can't do a separate episode. Guys, fucking
the light comic relief where they have to babysit a teenage prostitute and then turn her out again, you know?
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. I forget so much about Sons of Anarchy now because like I tried to dump it after we did that last podcast, but this show is definitely bringing back.
It lives again. It like it's resurrected. It's like this crucifix, you know, symbolism that he keeps coming back to. Like we said, the end of Sons of Anarchy was like an extended resurrection symbolism, right? So like it's just like a full circle. Time is a flat circle. Just comes all back around in the Bastard Executioner.
I think so Kurt Sutter's going to keep going with this theme for like the Sons of Anarchy set in different places. Like there will be like a Blade Runner Sons of Anarchy. There will be like Sons of Anarchy on the Titanic.
I can't wait. Yeah, Sons of Anarchy.
His next show should definitely be about World War II, but from the Nazis' perspective. like during but the North African campaign with like Rommel, who was sort of like kind of a good Nazi in a way.
Yeah, it'll be morally complex.
Oh my, yeah, he also did in this show manage to cram like 1 million political maneuvers. That like, which is what he did at the end of Sons of Anarchy too. Like the whole last season was just like, okay, now here's your it was like a video game. Like he had a task, and And this and the bastard executioner, the task was he had to beat the boss, which was that Baron. He beat that boss by stabbing him through the head with a knife that came out. Or actually, he didn't even do it. He didn't even have to kill the guy.
It was his friend, yeah.
Yeah.
But he softened him up. It was the coup de grace at that point.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a good kill. I liked seeing the knife come out of the top of his mouth and hit him in the bottom lip, just to make it just to let you know it was disgusting. Because that's one of the other things he's shooting for. And Sons of Anarchy, I think because it was in modern times, so many guns. It was just gun deaths. And I think he really is just, his goal now is to be like, I want to get the same effect out of mowing down a school. But I can't do that because I don't have guns, so I'll kill everybody in the most vile way possible.
But I want to get back to the political maneuvers a bit. There were a lot of them. But they're like, there's a ceiling on political maneuvers in the Kurt Sutter universe. To bring back Sons of Anarchy, I now consider our Old Testament to the Bastard Executioner. Go back to Sons of Anarchy. There was like an extended plot, like subplot, where like Tara, Jax's wife, who is a brilliant neurosurgeon or whatever.
It's like Ben Carson.
Yeah, I was gonna say Ben Carson. Her hospital administrator is like, Tara, you keep getting biker bullshit into the fucking hospital. Like you keep the Sons of Anarchy, not like I'm gonna fire you because you've caused like. Your husband kills 20 people a week. So it's like this big thing, like, oh no, is Tara going to lose her job? And Tara's way that she outmaneuvers this woman is just by beating the shit out of her. And then it's fine. So, like, I feel like we saw a lot of stuff where, like, Miles Corbett, and you see how, like, devious he is, and he's like, oh, I'm going to whisper into the Baroness's ear, and, like, you know, I'm going to get my plan, and the king won't know. But, like, it's just gonna end with like either Wilkin Brattle cutting a guy's head off while he's screaming, or like Miles Corbett like solemnly fucking a dude in the ass.
we should probably mention that Miles is played by Stephen Moyer of True Blood.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, the guy he was Suki, you must calm down now. He was that guy on True Blood, and I believe married to Anna Paquin in real life.
Oh, Bill. He was Bill.
Yeah, he was Suki.
Suki. Hey, that's who. Yeah, okay. Now I know who that's why he looks familiar to me. Oh, my God.
Oh, and another call out, the priest on the Bastard Executioner was the nasty head of the IRA guy from one of the later seasons of Sons of Anarchy.
So he's definitely coming back.
Yeah.
This priest is going to do something badass.
Oh, the priest is like, I'm calling it now, the priest is like, probably used to be some kind of like killer, and then like, you know, he's like he's sort of like undercover now as like a priest. He's tried to put that behind him, but he's probably done real dirt. He's probably a real heavy hitter later in the show.
He's not the Bastard Executioner's dad, is he?
Could be.
Ooh,
yeah. Sorry, can we just? I just want to talk about probably my favorite scene in the first 2 episodes or in the pilot is after Brattle and his like sort of band of hooded outlaws kill the tax collectors in the woods. They get their victory, but like one of the guys escapes and goes back to report to the evil Count Ventress about their cowardly ambush in the woods. The thing is, he sees the sheep fucker guy as he's riding away in fear, right?
Yeah.
So he reports back. He's like, okay, yes, they wore masks, but this time I saw one of their faces, and it was different. He was wearing, pelts of an odd kind. I think they were beaver pelts. And, like, the bad guy hears it, and he's like, bring me a map. Bring me a map. Where do beavers dam? They're like, my lord, usually near the sea. And then he's like, that's the village. On the map, there, we ride now. He's like Sherlock Holmes. He used deductive reasoning, but it took him about 3 seconds to pick out which backwater, farming hovel was the source of this terrorism.
He actually had to ask, "Are there settlers there? Are there settlers there?"
They're
So,
like, I don't know, sire, but there are beavers.
In 3 seconds, it was way more competent and thought out than the Obungler Syria strategy.
yeah. I did love him going and grabbing a map. Like, not even leafing through a few maps. He just opened up one. He had the map, the official map, I guess, of what we need. That map.
It's the same map that they get all the location titles from.
I know. That's why we need it. Maybe they have it on FX.com.
Yeah, we should look on the website. There's probably
I was given a booklet. I'll check and see if there's a map, and I'll investigate it for you guys.
Yeah, please route us to let us. I need more. I need to know that these are real places. Where is the Shire?
I'll look at my book. I got a booklet with my Blu-ray containing the first 3 episodes, as I'm an official reviewer now.
Oh, you got the 3rd episode too, man.
I do.
Felix is on the for your consideration list.
You lucky bastard.
You
lucky bastard executioner.
I am. Well, it was like The Secret. Everyone for months was like, yeah, you see the bastard executioner, it's like something you would do. And they like willed me into this position that I'm in now.
Yeah, you're
That's
lucky.
amazing.
I can't wait till I can't wait till the finale now. Do you see this doing more than one season, or maybe Kurt Sutter just gets bored and it's kind of like it turns into where Jax stopped doing his accent and Kurt Sutter moves over to the Mayans TV show?
I mean, in the Hollywood Reporter article, like sort of the gist of it was like Sons of Anarchy was such a successful show for FX, and like even though, as we've discussed, the quality of the show just continued like a sort of a miserable downward decline, by the 7th season it had more viewers than it ever had before, right? Yeah. So like, the viewing just went up and up and up on Sons of Anarchy, and it was like one of FX's most popular shows of all time. So like in this Hollywood Reporter article, he's like, the dark bastard with the golden dick at FX, and they're just like, if Kurt Sutter wants to make a show, we're doing it right now. And like just how quickly they put out this whole show, and like greenlit everything, and just like give him the keys to the city, basically.
That's the deal I want. They call that the Louis C.K. deal. He can do the same thing with FX, but
yeah.
Louis C.K. is like Kurt Sutter on the other side of the coin. Louis C.K. has a little more pretension. He's like, I'm a dark bastard, but I love my fucking daughters, who are stupid.
It was also filled with all kinds of weird psychosexual hang-ups, and if you've read about any of his extracurricular encounters as well, you
yeah, I'm trying to see, because like there is a Bob. Here's something that the bastard that Shire or Wilkins. Now, see, I forgot his name again. I'm real bad with names.
Wilkin Brattle.
Yeah, the bastard executioner has a Bobby Elvis in his crew, a guy that looks kind of like Bobby Elvis from Sons of Anarchy. But one thing that his crew has that Sons of Anarchy didn't, there's a black guy in this show. So
yes, that's true.
And they don't bring it up every 7 seconds. Which
there's one minor call out to be like, is your Moorish friend in good standing with our Lord? And they're like, yes, he's a practicing Catholic.
and he's that was a big scene for me, because they were sitting around a campfire and somebody started singing, and Wilkin Brattle walked off into the woods to sulk like Jax would do when he would read the ancient texts of the Sons of Anarchy Motorcycle Club.
Yeah, and there is like a little talk between the other rebels who like wrote Brattle into this, where they're like, oh, he's a dark bastard, and the other guy goes, I don't know why though. But like, were they present for the war that happened?
Well,
5 years previous.
He keeps telling people that he wasn't in the war. Yeah, they're all older than him. Like a lot of them, except for the sheep fucker. He's a young boy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I should have mentioned that about the sheep fucker before. He's a horny teen, so it's sort of funny.
He has dreadlocks too, and that's cultural appropriation, so I shan't be watching the show anymore.
Hey, will you tell me?
Wait, what is cultural appropriation?
The sheep fucker has dreadlocks.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, he's a blonde kid with dreadlocks. Yeah.
Do you think they killed the sheep at some point too?
Oh, yeah.
God, I hope not.
Absolutely.
I need to get that catharsis to see the sheep killed and see him cry.
Can we? Okay, let's put our bets down right now. Who from the first episode is going to die in this season? Brian. Brian, I know that I personally, when I was writing my recap, I had to check like 5 different sources for character names. It was a more intensive process in my senior thesis. But just like, give me who you think is not going to survive the first season.
I think the only 2 people that come out of the first season that aren't lords. I think we're done seeing lords get killed for a while. That was like, or barons or any of the important noble types get killed. I think we're done seeing that for a while. But I don't think the crew is any more than just the bastard executioner and his friend that are running around that are protected by the king. I think they just kill everybody else. Like anybody else that's on the rebellion. I think we're going to basically this whole season is going to be people from the rebellion getting mowed down with swords and different types of things. Unless I'm like, I could be wrong because I'm starting to think that it's going to turn into where like every episode he has to go find somebody and torture and execute them.
It could be that, but I see a lot of gratuity. I brought this up because like when the traveling Punisher's wife like puts on the charade with Brattle, I was like, she's gonna die. Like she's gonna die soon, and that kid's gonna die.
Yeah. The kid is already looking up to Brattle as like a father figure. And it was like, he traded up in dads, really. So he was right in on this charade from the get-go. He was like, oh, new dad is so much better.
He's fucked up. He wasn't
just for my Deadpool, I'm just going to, serve a minor character in the first 2 episodes, but I'm going to go with sort of the good Baroness, not her. The now widowed Baroness's handmaiden that sort of looks like Chris Morris from Brass Eye and the Day-to-Day. I think she's gonna get killed.
Okay, yeah, that's a good bet.
I see that as happening for sure. Okay, maybe not. Yeah, no, she's gonna get killed for sure. Yeah, I don't think I had a question about when he met that. Did that woman fall in love with him, or did he threaten to crush her baby's head? That was another thing.
No, I don't think he was threatening the baby. I think the woman saw an opportunity immediately to trade up in Bastards and took it and ran with it.
Yeah, and then he pulled. I mean, they showed what kind of guy we have, what kind of political thinker we have, which is he blamed one of the guys that slaughtered the village. He blamed them for killing the lords and ended up getting to kill him in the end. He get to execute him, right? How did that frame-up job work? Because I had trouble following it once we got into the city.
Well, it was sort of like they go through this whole charade where, like, you think he's going to get called out because the guy's wife and kid are, like, right there. And they're like, is this your husband, ma'am? But, of course, she just plays right along with it, right? But, of course, the bad guy, played by Vampire Bill, obviously saw through this right away. But he wanted to kill his own brother anyway because, he's an evil, conniving bastard. So it was sort of a mutually reinforcing lie that helps the characters and the plot of the show.
Yeah, it does. It definitely made everybody look like shit by the end of the episode. Like, there was not a single innocent person by the end of the second episode.
Another thing I want to mention about the show that kept confusing me over and over again is the fade to black and white before commercial breaks.
That's like when
I was as off put by that as I was.
I think it makes me wonder if maybe Kurt wanted to do the Sons of Anarchy skull before every commercial break. And they were like, no, dude, you're not going to fucking do that. You can do it once at the end. And he was like, all right. I'll compromise. But this time they just let him do whatever he wanted. He was like, turn it black and white at the end of before it goes to commercial every time.
They would have let Kurt star swipe. Like, he could have done anything after Sons of Anarchy.
That's true, yeah. So I think we're gonna do another one at the end of the season. Hell, I would almost do one for each episode, but I think that the show's gonna slow down.
That would wear out pretty quick.
Yeah, it's starting to slow
I'm
down.
already doing that. I anticipate people getting sick of my recaps by episode 3.
Yeah, I think that the ratings are gonna. I saw a guy on Facebook, and he was like, "Yeah, right. This bastard executioner's dumb as hell, and I only made it through 15 minutes of." Like, a lot of people are like, "I didn't make it all the way through the show," and I'm starting to wonder if the three of us would have made it through the show if we weren't gonna do this.
If I wasn't on the hook to, yak about it.
I would have. I've watched Jamie Kilstein's Nickelback rant 6 times.
Oh, dear God.
I watched
his song.
Yeah, I
watch
watched
his
Boy Blues.
Oh my God.
I've seen a lot of disturbing stuff in my day.
Yeah. This show, I mean, I'm in for the long haul now. I watched the first 2 episodes. That's what happened with Sons of Anarchy.
No, I'm signing on for the first season, definitely.
Yeah, and I'm coming back for the second.
We'll reevaluate over the summer, but
Yeah, so we'll do another one of these at the end of this season after we all see well, Felix is gonna see it very early because he's a lucky boy that gets them in the mail.
That's right.
So and you can't tell anybody. How's that embargo's got to be the worst.
Yeah, no, I mean it's I'm sitting on a treasure trove. Last time I did it like 2 weeks before it premiered, and I was just like, people were still like, "Hey, I saw an ad for this show," or "Hey, like this seems like this. Did you invent this?" And I was like, "You have no idea what you're in for, buddy."
You did invent this. You willed this into the fucking. This is the secret.
Yeah, you brought this forth out of the ether. You conjured this into existence through through your words. It's like, ritual magic, basically.
Oh, I'm like the Dark Mute.
Yes, definitely.
I pulled this off. I'm gonna have a fucking bed frame in no time.
Yeah, I saw it. I saw it, and I did see it, and I was like, this really is like his vision. This is Felix's vision. So that is really great. That is I love it.
Thank you,
because
Felix.
of that. Yes, thank you for putting this out there. And no, but I saw Sons of Anarchy, and like I watched that, and I was like, this really matches my sensibilities in a sort of a way where it's like, this is trashy. Like this is
yes,
trashy.
Absolutely.
You know what? I'm very redneck and trashy, but this is like a different. Like Felix is a more sophisticated trashy, and that's what this show is.
I am. Yeah, I'm the piece of shit who rolls off of his mattress. It's on the floor without a box spring on it. Like eats an apple, smokes like a Newport Red. But then I come back on the toilet. I'll be reading about Saladin or something like that. It's for the gentleman like me.
It is strange though too, because like I'm getting the sense that like any kind of knowledge you have about medieval times or anything is fucking absolutely useless for this show.
No, I studied this period in college. It's useless.
My brother has a degree in medieval literature. I'm going to try to get some screening parties going.
I really am fucking interested because like this show seems like what I think. This show seems like my brain when somebody's like it's a medieval show. Like this is what my brain would show because like I didn't study this time. Everything I studied happened after the 1800s. So like it's just really fucking it seems so unsophisticated, but it seems like it fucking desperately wants to be sophisticated.
Shakespeare was created as popular entertainment of his era, but people won't shut up about what a genius he is.
And it's true. Like if there is one thing, I took a Shakespeare. I've read enough Shakespeare now and analyzed enough Shakespeare now to know that like he's pretty much doing the same thing. I mean, but like we've kind of moved. I don't know. I just don't think as people we're used to this anymore.
Look, I'm not at all uncomfortable saying that Kurt Sutter is doing the exact same thing as William Shakespeare.
He's modern Shakespeare, really.
He's the modern Shakespeare. And I even have another quote from him right here. I love the idea of bending genre, weaving fiction into fact. I mean, you could say the same thing about Henry V.
That's right. And like, wasn't it Shakespeare who originally said, "I'm a real dark, twisted bitch who takes to get something on stage"?
Sometimes a son of a bitch has to be a motherfucker. Isn't that?
You know how hard Shakespeare was on his critics.
Yes,
these pussy theater critics who didn't get Macbeth and said it was too dark and violent. He vomited on them.
Can I ask you? Has he addressed the bad rate or the bad reviews for the Bastard Executioner, or had that not happened before this profile?
I think the FX PR department has made extra sure that he not address any of these issues.
That's bullshit. That's fucking bullshit. You cannot tell a shark not to swim.
We can check his blog. Back to the Hollywood Reporter profile. It opens with Lacey, the person who's writing it, talking about how he called her a cunt years ago.
Oh my God.
And then,
of course he fucking did.
Sorry. Then he says, in the moment, of course, such insults aren't all that funny, as many who have been on the receiving end of Sutter's wrath over the years can attest. Those include, quote, cunt bloggers who criticized his first FX smash, Sons of Anarchy.
Guilty.
Yes, he's talking about us, gentlemen.
Yeah. Hey, you know what, man? I never said a single bad thing about Sons of Anarchy, except for it was... I did say a lot of bad things about it, but I watched every episode. He can't be mad at somebody that is clear. I'm clearly a fan of Kurt Sutter. I've come to terms this week with it.
If Kurt Sutter were to call me a cunt, he would do it in the way that like British people do. That's sort of endearing. Like,
yeah.
Will's a cunt. He's a good cunt.
Yeah. I'm a fan. Like, would you guys say you're a fan of his now? Like,
absolutely.
Of course.
It's really like he is, I guess, like in a weird way, he's kind of like liking the band Korn a little bit. He's Korn. He's the Korn of TV.
He's an auteur.
He is. He's great. People are gonna look back on him as fucking.
Because you could say almost anything about the Bastard Executioner, and it was a very rocky 2 hours of television, but it was absolutely his vision.
I could spend another hour with you guys listing shows that aren't as enjoyable to watch as Bastard Executioner. Or would you rather watch Bastard Executioner or Sons of Anarchy or In Treatment?
Well, yeah, Kurt Sutter had this whole beef with Matt Weiner over Mad Men, where he kept talking all this shit about Mad Men because it wins all the awards, but like not even 1/10 of the people watch it, as did Sons of Anarchy. And I believe at one point in Sons of Anarchy, in the porn company, they like go on set and they're filming some like porn spoof of Mad Men called like Bad Men, and like a Don Draper character is getting like bent over a desk and spanked or something. But right off the bat on the Bastard Executioner, he's using one of the central conceits in Mad Men, the Don Draper Dick Whitman twist, right? This is a Wilkin Brattle, Gavin Maddox, or what's the name of the original?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So
yeah,
I think he's borrowing from his nemesis.
Yeah, but Dick Whitman didn't kill Don Draper. There was no witch. There was certainly no like murder of Dick Whitman's wife. It was just like I could do this, and then just like years of ennui afterwards. Wilkin Brattle. There's just going to be badass head cutting, castle intrigue, the world. Can we talk about how the now deceased Baron Ventress, the first time we see him, he's doing the world's slowest doggy style? Kurt Sutter's relationship with sex I need to commission a book on it.
Yeah.
Fucking awesome.
Sorry, one of the first notes I had in my phone after just OMG, what the fuck? One of the notes on my phone just says, barren hole, swollen meat. Wow. And that was the first thing evil Count Ventrance says after limply bawling his wife is, what's the point in throwing swollen meat down a barren hole?
Jeez.
The man is a poet.
And then right after, his wife looks out, or the handmaid says to his wife, do you need a bath, milady? And she sort of looks longingly out the window and goes, I need so much more.
Oh, yeah, I do.
She needs Wilkin Brattle is what she needs.
Oh, fuck
He's
yeah.
going to get it. He's going to get it.
Jesus, they're already there.
Wilkin Brattle could fertilize that womb with blood.
I actually had another. I only wrote a couple of lines of the dialogue in there, but the other one was when the Baron and the Bastard Executioner were about to fight. The Bastard Executioner, Wilkin Brattle, looks at him and says, "Death will quiet your mind."
True. Like the most cutting lines are true.
Yeah, it is.
When he's dead. And true, like, it is self-fulfilling prophecy, he gets stabbed through the head.
Yes, that is true. Yeah.
Good writers call their shots.
Man, there's just no heat on this online yet, but I think once this show comes out,
we're stoking the embers right now into a mighty blaze.
Yeah, it's the great. So I highly recommend watching the show, especially if we're like I said, us three will be here for the finale.
I highly recommend watching the show so you can possibly even half understand anything we talked about over this last hour or so.
I think they'll get it. We didn't tell the linear story. You got to watch the show now. But I mean, you can listen to it. Yeah, read. Yeah, tell them where your recap is, Felix.
My recaps are on theobserver.com, the New York Observer.
The New fucking York Observer.
New York City Observer, as I like to call it.
Man, everybody's seeing those. He's Swarthy Villain on Twitter, and you probably already follow him. And Will?
It's just me, Will.
Will Menaker. He's Will Menaker on Twitter. He's going to fight Brett at some point in the future for the right to co-host the show.
I'm going to fucking destroy him.
I think so too. I do. I think you're in better shape, really.
Brett, I've seen Brett.
Fat chance I'm in better shape than Brett is. But,
he is beefing up.
I'm devious.
Yeah,
well, I can train you. We live close.
Yes, definitely. I need a trainer badly.
You probably do. Brett watches a lot of wrestling. He knows a lot of tough moves. I don't know if they're practical for a fight. But he does know some moves that would hurt you. They've broken necks, okay?
Felix, as long as you have a shirt for me that says, nobody cares, work harder, stop whining.
Oh, yeah, I got one of those.
You got one of those? Okay, good.
I'm training MMA places in the Midwest.
Yeah.
I don't have any shirts that aren't like that.
So we'll see you at the end of the season. You can always find what we do. I'm Murder Brian, MurderBryan, and Will Menaker, WILLMENAKER.
You got it.
Swarthy Villain. You know him. If you can't spell those two words, I don't know what to fucking tell you. I always get afraid that I'm going to spell villain wrong. Because it's AIN, I think, at the end.
It's a miracle that I did it right.
Just imagine if your name was Matthew McConaughey and you had to spell that over and over again.
Or Wilkin Brattle, for that matter.
Wilkin Brattle, or give me two more names before we stop this broadcast.
Milas Corbett.
Okay, Milas Corbett and
Baron Ventress.
God, they're bad names. They're all fucking bad names, man. It seems like he put a bunch of medieval sounding fucking words in a hat and shook it up. picked them out and sat them next to each other.
Dark Mute, who isn't actually mute.
Yeah, well, yeah. He's probably light, too. He's probably a fucking angel. You'll find out at the end. All right, we'll see you guys for the finale.
I'll be there.
Hell yeah.